So for this example, I had a quick look earlier at interesting information. And there's a really nice set of information from really nice set of information from the gov.uk website actually, and it's collected by the Leeds City Council on footfall information. So that's how many people have entered or exited a certain area. So the information here is in the form of comma separated values. You can be a lot fancier with processing this information with scripts and stuff like that, but today I'm just going to show you how to do it with Excel. And it's stuff I'm doing will be very simple. If you know your formulas, it's always helpful, but we're not going to do anything fancy. So the first graph I'm going to do is just a line chart. And looking at this data set, we have on the left, well, the furthest left just is Leeds. So here, we're going to look at this location here, Elgin Street at McDonald's. And what we want to do, or what I want to do for this example, is compare how the footfall traffic look like at different time of day, on different days of the week. And I'm looking at this because in the past, this is something that has informed designs I've done, and I'm sure you can figure out ways of how that might affect something you design. Especially important when it comes to designing kind of mixed-use developments. If you're developing somewhere where the city council has said that we don't want this area to be dead at night, and you might be designing residential with commercial, then information like this is really useful. So just looking at this information, I mean, the street name, the year, this is all not that relevant. We're going to pick again, we're going to set up our own logic, and our logic is we're just going to take 1 week. We're going to take 1 week from this information. So we're going to take, I mean, this is already just 1 week. So that entire set of information is Monday to Friday, right? If you look at this column, sorry, Monday to Sunday. And on the right here, in count, that's how many people have entered, how many people have left. We're not going to worry about that. We're going to look at the total, just so you have a single set of data to plot. So this is when you would go on to Flourish, and when you start this chart, it gives you an example, and it gives you an example of data. And if you look at how you lay down the data, it's close to how beautiful and living this column here, that year column, is what goes on your x-axis. Each of these columns are one of your lines. Now, if we're comparing footfall between different days of the week, we want this to say Monday, Tuesday, etc. That will be probably the number of people, and on our x-axis, probably the time of day. Okay. But what we see here is that's not the information we have, right? Our information is not in the format we want it to be. We have days of the week, but the days of the week needs to be it needs to be organized differently, right? They need to be combined into one column, and our data needs to fall under that column with the count under that with hours. So what we're going to do here is we're going to choose actually just select everything up until the end of that week on Sunday. And we're going to go to Insert and Pivot Table. What Pivot Table let us do is take all of that data and sort it in a way that makes more sense for exactly what we want it for. So fairly simple. On row, we want that to be, well, our row is x-axis, so our row probably wants to be, is it called hour? Yeah, hour. So you're going to take this hour label, and you don't always have to do this. I'm just showing you what you might do if your data doesn't match the format that Flourish wants your data to be. Something easier, for example, if you're doing a pie chart, you have your 5 numbers and 5 labels, and that's it. It's not that complicated. On the column, again, looking at the example here, our column labels will probably be our days of the week. And we're just going to check what that's called in our data set, and it's called day name. So our day name goes into columns, and the actual values we're going to have here is the report count, which is the total number of people. So our report count goes to our values. So I mean, you can already see it's laid out information here in a way that matches what Flourish is expecting. So all we have to do now then, take the information. We don't really need the totals. I'm just pressing Control-C, just copying that information. Let's get rid of this here. And let's paste that. So we have our, we'll just name this time of day. Monday, Tuesday. Yeah, everything looks fine. So there you go in the preview. Works out pretty well with the amount of traffic at different times of the week. And I would say looking at that, it's a bit messy, right? You're not. You get a general trend, but this might be better presented if you're trying to look at a general trend as an average of the week. But if we're looking at different times of the week, what I might want to do is, so on the right here, these are kind of all the ways you customize the look of your chart and how it's presented. What I'll probably do in this case is first get rid of the dots, because the dots suggest there are discrete bits of information that matters to us. It doesn't. We're looking at the trend. Our lines, they look about okay. Our labels, I'm not going to show the labels here just because they all aggregate together and it's quite messy. So we're going to take that off. So we're going to add the x-axis, time of day, just adding some labels to the first stuff. And we're looking at full counts. You can click this styling tab if you want to change any, if you want to play around with how the font is actually presented. And in color here, so by default, it's given us all these messy colors. What I'm going to do is I want to extract, for example, just the weekends, right? Maybe I'm designing, to be honest, whatever I'm designing, it matters what, there's a difference between weekday and weekend. So what I'm going to do, and you can, if you forget, you can always highlight that little question mark and it'll tell you the format. What I'm going to say is, I'm going to take the weekdays, I'm going to have them as, if I can type, So I'm just telling to show different days as different colors, which gives us a chart that's a bit cleaner, where we're seeing the weekends as the weekend really stand out, and you can do some stuff with that. You can do the same when it comes to the actual lines. So, if you want the information from the weekdays to be a bit less opaque, you could perhaps set them to dotted or not. Up to you to decide, really. Maybe a bit thinner. Maybe very thin, just so you really see the weekends from the rest of the information. So we're just going to turn legend back on, just so, we don't have the thing there anymore, but we still have it on the top. And I don't know, there might be other things you want to do with this graph. You might want to match the color scheme to the rest of your portfolio. Really just go on and play around, really. There's also other interesting things you can do. For example, adding a control to your graph, so you can isolate any particular day, or isolate any particular set of days, which you can either have this as an interactive thing, or you can just use this function to help you produce quite a few charts from the same set of charts. I will show an example of this from another set of data, but on your chart type, you can also actually have it so that they're different individual graphs. Of course, you might want to consider how it actually shows up on them, and maybe you can overlay Sunday onto every day. It really depends on what you're doing, right? So that's this. Just showing an example how you might use this particular chart. And we're gonna stick with the same data set. We're gonna look at some other stuff you might want to represent. So again, the reason I show that one first is because it requires you to kind of mess about with the data a little bit and sort through the data a little bit. You might have other charts you can look at. This can be another way to represent that information. Actually, looking at this now, this probably makes more sense because our days are continuous. They don't stop discretely at midnight. And again, this is actually almost the same set of data, so we can just take this and see how it looks. I don't know why I can't just take the data as text. I'm sure. What it was saying is it doesn't accept the date it doesn't accept one of the labels as just date. So I'm just gonna use Excel and convert that to text instead. I'm doing some weird stuff. Okay, apparently I don't know my Excel as well as I thought I did. Actually, so what I'm trying to do is figure out a quick formula to turn these numbers of hours into text instead of hours. Instead of trying to embarrass myself and try to figure out the formula, have it not work. It's a good example to show what ChatGPT can do. So what I was trying to do is make a formula that combines a number with a letter, and I forgot the syntax of how I want it. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT Excel function to combine a number from Excel with the letter. There we go. We should just replace all the GTAs with ChatGPT, really. And it should be happier now that it's text. Yeah, lovely. And here we're just gonna saturate. And nope. Oh, okay, this is the opposite way I want to do it. Yeah, cool. I mean, it's a bit silly with all the numbers around it, but that's why I didn't want to take time as an input. Okay. What I did there was I had the two axes flipped. But I mean, if anything, this is really how you should approach a software, which is just mess around with it and figure out what you can do. And you might wanna. I've actually never done this chart before, so try to figure out how to make it. Yeah. Yeah, probably looks a bit better than what we had. Yeah, there you go. And honestly, the idea of the session was for me to go through kind of different charts you can do, but realistically, there's no point watching me just here, going to each chart and typing some data. So what I'm going to ask is if there's any information that you're looking to visualize, you can try some stuff out on your own. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to call me over. Also, if not, this is Introduction to Flourish. And you're free to do whatever. Thank you. Any questions from anyone before we wrap up? Yeah, go for it.
How do you go about that?
So a few ways. One of the ways we've done in the past, and I can show an example of it, which is you can obviously just link to Flourish, and we have linked to Flourish before. Something else you can do. Okay. Is to do it as a. I mean, this isn't a Flourish chart, but what I'll say is with interactive PDF, layer them together, and have, for example, your days of the week that the buttons. But I would again be careful with that. The issue with that, and we have this in the past, is if you make an interactive PDF with all your charts and stuff, and your professor clicks on that link from the submission box, it by default opens it in Microsoft Explorer, Internet Explorer, and then now to interactive subway. So, yeah, exactly. So I just be careful with that. If you have a really cool chart, and some of the chart we have a lot of information when you click on it and zooms in and stuff, just put a link and don't even make it a button, just put a plain link into your document. And give it its own page, literally just its own page, here's a chart. Just to make sure they don't miss it, just being realistic, because it's easy to miss when people aren't used to dealing with receiving interactive charts. Yeah. I think it'd be anything really. Like it really up to you how you use it, because it's just a tool. Yeah. Like you can use it as a really cool interactive thing that you show. That's like a really amazing piece of visual presentation. Yeah. Because as you've seen examples of some of the good stuff, you can use it to make charts. You can use it as an investigative tool. But you can also use it as like a template for you to make stuff off of. Like sometimes I would go on Flourish, mess around, take one of their charts, put it into Illustrator, and then make a chart from there on Illustrator and make it a little bit prettier, so to speak. No, unfortunately, it doesn't export to anything vector. It exports as an image or HTML. But for quite simple diagrams, you can just trace over them, right, and make something nice.
Does it offer any, like, if you've got a stack of data,
yeah.
is there any way I can put it into Flourish and then like click two options? How would it?
No, but let me show you.
Do I have to select, I want a bar chart and then put my data in, see what
You do, yeah. You kind of have to clean up your data before you give it to Flourish. But what I would say is, one thing you can do is if you give it more information than it needs. So for example, I'm gonna do one of these diagrams, the grid of bars, right? Maybe not. I'm just gonna do a simple bar chart, but so I might use this same. The same set of information, but I mean that's a bit crazy. What I can do is just take whatever column I want to show, and just not use some other columns. Something to do. But what you can also do is there's a, again, if you go back to ChatGPT, and there's a plugin for ChatGPT that enables you to upload stuff, and you get this button, which usually isn't on ChatGPT.
I got GPT-4, so.
Where you can be fancy. Yeah, I mean, have you played around with that? You can
Yeah,
just toss it a set of CSV files and ask it questions.
Yeah. So I've been putting in loads of different files, loads of PDFs that we've been getting from like outputs and stuff. And then
Brilliant.
yeah.
I mean, I do that at work as well, like taking queries and summarizing and
Taking
stuff.
outputs from it, it's fine. It's a great like investigative tool.
Yeah.
That's what I was asking, does my accommodation schedule will come derived from that? So like literally get it like that in
Brilliant.
whatever type of data I want. Perfect.
Try not to mention it because the uni's a bit funny about AI right now. Yeah. I mean, you're just touching on that in case no one else has talked about this in any of your ateliers. When it comes to AI generated stuff, even if it's a chart, even if it's just ChatGPT messing with a chart, you want to make sure that your output is you critically using AI generated information. Never have just AI generated stuff as output. That is currently deemed as plagiarism. The university is still trying to figure out stance on it, but currently that's what you can't do. Just be careful. And if you do, you technically can. We help run one of the ateliers in urbanism, where some of their entire outputs created with Midjourney. What we do with that is you prepare a document that shows all the steps you've taken. The same way you would present, for example, Grasshopper script on the back of a computational piece of design. Let me show you something because I worked on a very similar concept. What I would say is like there's a few approaches to it, and the approach I took, which was which atelier is it?
CPU.
Okay. So in infra, they're doing not infra, flux. There's a few projects like that where they're taking demolished stuff and they're making some other. Now the output they want in CPU might be different. I don't know. I never in the CPU, but what might be the case is. So I've done a project which the whole idea is you have all these oil rigs, right?
Yeah.
It came from that piece of research. You have all these oil rigs, and we're looking at demolishing an oil rig and then reusing as much of the oil rig as possible to build whatever might be
Yeah, that's
on an
very
oil
similar
rig.
to what I'm trying to do.
So what I've done is more from like a higher level, which is I'm not so concerned about like I'm not doing a script on the exact components. What I'm doing is designing examples of stuff in such a way that it's easy to make with salvage components, and then explaining. I don't remember which part of the document it's in.
Were you in the infra space?
What's in infra? Yeah. So I mean that's the idea, right? You catalog your components. What I said is you catalog your component, you design your spaces, and then computationally you work out with your components what the structures you can manage, and then how to fit that into something.
What like software do you use to get?
Nothing. It's more. I'm showing that what I'm doing is I'm designing a system behind it, and that there's going to be a practical side of the system that needs to be realized. But that's not like my concept. Like for example, I'm not designing the scanner that scans the material, right?
Yeah.
I'm designing the idea of how that system works. And your project might have a component that actually tries to do that.
Yeah.
And there are ways of doing that. You're better off talking to Reggie about that part. But what I want to tell you is the other part that's important for your project is to explain that process and to explain the system that go behind it. So this part explains how you might, for example, take different shapes and use Voronoi to find how they can connect together to make a different shape. The idea that we might be 3D printing different joints
Yeah.
flexibly based on the shape of the salvage material. The idea that
I'm actually trying to.
we are scanning of this. Yeah, I'm not showing an example where I literally took something down, built it back up.
Yeah.
But to explain that the system behind it makes sense. And for example, I have on one of my, this is the first set of oil rigs I'm decommissioning. On one of the oil rigs, the biggest one, so the biggest oil rig is going to be a set of workshops. And it's going to have kind of, I have no idea what anything is. But basically explaining that in that workshop things will be taken apart and stuff. And that the way stuff are designed is it tries to use different size components. So explaining that system behind it, I think it's just as important.
Yeah, because
as the actual script.
yeah, because the site we're given, there's like a line of abandoned buildings on the site that's being demolished. But what I'm trying to do is, instead of them being demolished, use like a 3D printing thing, which can scan what materials are there and then separate them, break them down to create 3D printable filament to 3D print the new building. But what I'm having trouble is in like figuring out what shape that building would be.
Okay. So what I would also say is like, again, there's a practical component, how like on a day-to-day you might do the operation, like the technology behind it. But at the same time, I will consider, so realistically, if you were to carry that process out, what will happen? So for example, in the first phase, you might build, you'll probably have a temporary shelter on site, and then maybe you build a storage building. And then from there, you might build a system of factories or a system of something. But that idea of how you go around, how that will carry out the different phases of that, how you might have one phase with a lot of temporary structure, and next phase into more permanent structure, and then in the end, this kind of hub where things can be processed and created. And then maybe on a larger scale, projecting into a bigger scale that this could be a system that works in different places, or different place might bring stuff into here and get it prefabricated for other places. So I think that system is as important to write about and to design. That makes sense.
Thank you so much.
No worries.